At exactly 7:38 a.m., Flight 228 was just beginning to board, with the dull murmur of sleepy passengers mixing with the occasional ding of overhead announcements. The air smelled faintly of burnt espresso and jet fuel, but amid the sleepy shuffle of business-class travelers and vacationing families, one woman stood still, completely unaware that by the end of this flight, everyone on board would know her name, and that none of them would forget it. Her name was Samantha Sam Delaney. 32 years old, fashion editor, sharp-witted and fiercely self-made, Sam had the quiet kind of presence that made people straighten their posture without realizing it. She wasn't flashy, but she wore confidence like a tailored coat, sleek, sharp, and just a bit intimidating. A family mystery had haunted her since childhood, one tied to her mother's disappearance on a flight eerily similar to this one. Sam had never stopped asking questions. She had been raised by her grandmother in Charleston, South Carolina, with no father in the picture, and only a faded boarding pass tucked in an old envelope to remind her of the past no one would talk about. Behind, Dorose, Miles Carter, a charming but aloof tech investor in his late 30s, adjusted his sunglasses despite being indoors. Miles exuded effortless wealth, the kind people resent without really knowing why. But under his expensive watch and polished shoes was a man running from his own dark secrets, a scandal involving his brother, a Silicon Valley lawsuit swept under the rug, and an unexplained event at a private airstrip last year that no one would talk about publicly, but that Miles couldn't forget. He didn't know it yet, but his past and Sam's were about to collide mid-air. Then came Claire Holloway, the flight attendant with a porcelain smile and a storm in her eyes. Claire had been flying for 15 years, and she knew the game better than anyone. But lately, her instincts had been screaming about the manifest, about the unregistered passenger name scribbled in pencil, and especially about the subtle security detail tailing Sam since the airport entrance. Claire had seen it all. Politicians slipping onto secret flights, agents pretending to be tourists. But something about this woman, this flight, felt wrong in a way she couldn't shake. Sam approached the gate with her ticket in hand. First. Clear so, but the moment the boarding agent scanned it, something shifted. A quiet tension, a pause too long. The agent's pleasant tone turned curt. I'm sorry, ma'am. You've been reseated. Please proceed to row 26. Sam blinked, confused. There must be a mistake. This was confirmed weeks ago. Security request. No explanation given, the agent replied, voice hushed but firm. The passengers around her slowed their steps, watching. Sam could feel their gazes prickling against her skin. The boarding line paused, the buzz of murmured conversation giving way to silence, as if everyone sensed the moment was on the edge of something. Sam didn't move. From behind her, Miles watched with mild amusement, until he saw the tight way her jaw clenched and the glint of something dangerous in her eyes. Not anger, not pride, something deeper. A challenge. Claire noticed it too. She leaned forward from her post by the cabin door, sensing the ripple building. Sam wasn't going to just walk back to coach. That much was clear, but what none of them knew, not Miles, not Claire, not the dozen passengers staring with phones discreetly recording, was that Sam had come prepared for this. She wasn't just a woman with a boarding pass. She had uncovered something she wasn't supposed to, something tied to her mother's final flight, a buried file, a coded message hidden in aviation logs, a trail that led here today, to this exact flight, and to the man seated in First Class 2B, Miles Carter. Sam stepped forward, locked eyes with the gate agent, and said just loud enough for those nearest to hear, I know why you're trying. To keep me off this flight, and trust me, you don't want me to say it out loud. The terminal went deathly quiet. Miles's face paled. Claire stiffened. The silence didn't last long. A voice crackled over the intercom, not the captain's usual greeting, but something far more chilling. All crew, secure the cabin. Repeat, secure the cabin. We have a situation. And just like that, the doors began to close. Not just behind Sam, but behind the lives they all thought they knew. What had she discovered? And why was someone willing to silence her before they ever reached cruising altitude? What secret was buried so deep it had to be kept at 35,000 feet? The heavy mechanical groan of the cabin door, locking behind Samantha Delaney, felt louder than it should have been. With that single sound, the runway world outside was shut away, and everyone on Flight 228 was locked in, together. The overhead lights flickered momentarily, just long enough for those watching to glance up and exchange nervous looks. That wasn't normal. But then again, nothing about this flight was going to be normal. Sam moved through the jet bridge, like a woman stepping onto a battlefield rather than into a plane, her heels clicking in defiance against the carpet. Her face was calm, but her fingers trembled slightly around the strap of her carry-on. Every step forward was a quiet rebellion, a refusal to be dismissed, erased, or redirected. Miles Carter sat in. Seat 2B off, pretending to scroll through his phone. He felt her before he saw her. Her presence was that palpable. He hadn't seen her since the last investor gala in New York, where she'd cornered him with subtle questions about her mother's disappearance. Questions that struck too close to truths he'd buried. She hadn't recognized him then, not fully, but now her eyes didn't waver. They locked on him with the sharpness of someone who had connected the dots. In a seat a few rows back, Claire Holloway watched the scene unfold with a tight knot in her stomach. She stepped into the galley and pressed the intercom, pretending to check supplies, but her fingers hovered over the emergency code just long enough to confirm it. This wasn't coincidence. The boarding pass change, the security alert, the name Delaney. It was all connected. Claire turned to her colleague, Ben Torres, a new hire with bright eyes and a nervous smile. Ben had the innocent vibe of someone who still thought every flight would go according to schedule. Ben, she whispered low, keep an eye on seat 2A, don't ask questions, just let me know if anything feels off. Ben blinked. Is she dangerous? Claire didn't answer. Instead, she moved toward the cockpit, her thoughts spinning. Sam Delaney. The name hadn't appeared on the original manifest. Someone had cleared her in last-minute overridden protocols, and now the systems were glitching like the plane itself didn't want to fly. Meanwhile, Sam settled into her reassigned row 26, her expression unreadable. The moment her tray table clicked into place, she pulled a folded photograph from her coat pocket. It was creased and yellowed at the edges, a black and white image of her mother, Evelyn Delaney, standing beside the wing of a nearly identical aircraft in 1988. Her mother had vanished on Flight 77 en route to Seattle, declared missing when the plane supposedly crashed into the Cascades. But Sam had uncovered something chilling in her research. Flight 77 was never found. No wreckage, no bodies, no answers. And now, 37 years later, she had traced every flight log, every shadow report, and every restricted record to one conclusion. Someone had covered it up, and Miles Carter's father, now a reclusive defense contractor, had been listed as a passenger on that very same flight. Excuse me, a voice interrupted her thoughts. A man had slid into the seat beside her. Aaron Mitchell. A travel photographer from Denver with camera gear strapped to his side like armor. He looked rugged, with days-old stubble and the kind of casual charisma that disarmed people. He held out a hand. Aaron, he said, figured since we're neighbors back here in economy exile, we should at least be on a first-name basis. Sam forced a smile. Sam. He caught the hesitation. You don't look like someone who usually rides back here. I don't, she replied simply. Aaron chuckled, but there was a flicker of something behind his grin. Curiosity, maybe even recognition. You're not a reporter, are you? That stopped her. Why do you ask? He shrugged, eyes scanning. The cabin subtly. You just look like someone chasing a story. And whatever you said back at the gate, gotta admit that was pretty badass. Whole plane went silent. Even the guy in first with the Rolex stopped typing. Sam glanced toward the front of the cabin. Miles hadn't looked back since she boarded. That meant he was rattled. Aaron leaned closer. "Look, I don't want to pry, but you're going to anyway?" He grinned again. "Call it professional instinct. I travel a lot. Seen my fair share of people trying to outrun their dark pasts. You're the first I've seen running toward one." She met his gaze, the tiniest crack in her composure forming. "I'm not chasing a story," she said quietly. "I'm chasing a ghost." Claire stood in the cockpit doorway now, whispering to Captain Dean Weller, a gruff veteran pilot with decades of international routes under his belt. The captain's brows furrowed as Claire described the unregistered passenger update and the old FAA override code used to approve Sam's seat. "That code hasn't been used in 20 years, Claire murmured. "It was flagged in connection to Flight 77. Weller's jaw tensed. "Then someone doesn't want her on this plane." As they spoke, turbulence hit, unexpected and sharp. The lights flickered again. Seatbelt signs chimed. Claire and Weller exchanged a glance. Back in row 26, Sam's phone vibrated. One new message, no sender ID. "He knows you're here, but it's not just him. The plane isn't safe. Check the black envelope in your overhead. 2A. Her heart thundered. She stood. Aaron blinked. "Where are you going?" "I'll be back," but Sam didn't answer. She moved quickly, head low, weaving through passengers now watching her again. She reached the first-class overhead bins and popped one open, pretending to adjust luggage. Behind a leather satchel, she spotted it, a black envelope, unmarked, sealed. Her fingers closed around it, just as a low beep sounded near the galley, an alert Claire recognized instantly. Pressurization. Anomaly. Cabin systems were being accessed remotely. Then came the intercom, this time from someone not on the crew. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is a message for Samantha Delaney. You were warned not to board, but you boarded anyway. Now everyone on board will suffer the consequences of your curiosity." Every head turned. Gasps, screams. Claire's voice cracked over the speaker. "Remain calm. Flight crew is handling the issue. Please stay seated." Sam stared at the envelope in her eye. Hands inside it, she knew, was the next piece. A key to everything. A family drama buried in the ruins of a plane that never crashed. A dark past tied to her mother. And a truth that would either bring justice or get her killed. But as the lights dimmed one last time and the plane jerked, again midair, Sam couldn't help but wonder, was this really a warning? Or was it a trap set years ago, waiting for her to open it? The black envelope felt unnervingly heavy in Sam's hand as she retreated from the first-class cabin toward her seat. The murmurs in the cabin grew louder, whispers of confusion and fear threading through the rows. Faces turned, eyes widening at the cryptic announcement and the sudden turbulence that tossed the plane like a ship caught in a storm. Somewhere deep inside her, an instinct whispered that this was no ordinary flight, and the mystery was about to unravel in ways she hadn't dared imagine. She slipped into row 26, clutching the envelope as if it were the only lifeline left in a sea of uncertainty. Aaron sat frozen beside her, eyes darting nervously to the windows as the plane jolted again. "Sam, what is it?" His voice was low, urgent. "What's inside that thing?" Before she could answer, the cabin lights flickered violently, plunging the plane into near darkness. A collective gasp rippled through the passengers, followed by the ominous creak of metal straining. Claire's voice came over the intercom again, more strained this time. "Everyone, please remain calm. We are experiencing technical difficulties. The crew is addressing the situation." But beneath the surface calm, tension surged. Miles Carter's usual veneer of composure cracked visibly, his fingers tightening around the armrests as if bracing for impact. Not just physical, but something far darker. He glanced at Sam, and for a brief moment there was recognition, not just of an old acquaintance, but of a threat. Sam took a deep breath, peeling open the black envelope. Inside was a single sheet of thick yellowed paper, covered in dense handwritten notes and an odd symbol, a circle enclosing a star with a serpent curling around its edges. The handwriting was familiar, chillingly so, her mother's. Her fingers trembled as she read the words. They never vanished. Flight 77 was a doorway and we crossed through. Beware the watchers above. The sky holds dark secrets, danger lurking beyond sight. A cold shiver ran down her spine. The family mystery she'd chased all these years wasn't just about a missing flight or a cover-up. It hinted at something supernatural, something that transcended ordinary explanations. The air inside the cabin seemed to grow heavier, as if invisible eyes were watching, waiting. Aaron leaned in, eyes wide. This isn't just a conspiracy theory. This is something else entirely. Suddenly, the cabin lights snapped back on, but something had changed. The usual hum of the engines was replaced by a low, eerie drone that vibrated through the metal walls. Passengers looked around, unnerved, as shadows seemed to flicker just beyond the edges of their vision. Claire's calm facade cracked when she felt a sudden chill. She turned toward the cockpit, where Captain Weller and co-pilot Jackson stared at their instruments, faces pale. The altimeter spun wildly, and the navigation systems blinked erratically. Weller's voice was tight. We're losing control. It's like the instruments are fighting us. Miles stood abruptly, voice sharp. What the hell is going on? Are we being hacked? Before Claire could answer, the intercom hissed, cutting through the cabin with a distorted, chilling voice. Not human, but mechanical, layered with something else beneath it. Flight 228 is now crossing the threshold. Prepare for revelations. You cannot escape what you do not understand. A collective shudder passed through the cabin. Aaron gripped Sam's arm. Threshold, what threshold? Sam swallowed hard. The words felt like a key turning in a lock deep inside her mind, unlocking memories of her mother's cryptic warnings. Suddenly, the cabin temperature dropped sharply. Passengers wrapped themselves in blankets, some whispering prayers. Sam's breath formed tiny clouds in the air, her heart pounding. This is beyond anything I've imagined, she murmured. Miles's gaze hardened. You brought this on us. Sam turned to him, eyes blazing. No, you did. Your family's secrets didn't stay buried. They're alive in this plane, and now they're coming for all of us. The tension exploded when the cabin door behind first class swung open on its own, slowly, eerily, revealing not the jet bridge, but a swirling mist of shadow and light that spilled into the aisle like a living fog. Passengers gasped, clutching their seats as the mist crept forward, twisting and coiling. Claire shouted, "Close that door, now!" But the door slammed shut before anyone could move, locking with a metallic clang that echoed like a death knell. The fog thickened, and faint whispers filled the cabin. Words in a language no one recognized, yet somehow ancient and urgent. Amid the chaos, a voice broke through the noise, calm, haunting, and unmistakably familiar. "Sam," it said, "you were never meant to find this truth. But now that you have, the sky will reveal its darkest secrets." The voice sent a wave of emotional turmoil crashing over her. Her mother? Or something else? She gripped the envelope tighter, her resolve solidifying. The family drama she'd long suppressed was unfolding right here, in the most unimaginable way. Suddenly, the plane lurched violently as if caught in an invisible storm. Passengers screamed. Miles caught Sam's arm, eyes wild. "We're not dealing with technology anymore. This is something else." Sam nodded, heart pounding as the mystery deepened. Somewhere high above the clouds, a door had opened, and no one on board was prepared for what was coming through. "Hold on," she whispered, voice steady despite the chaos. "This is just the beginning. The unexpected twists were only starting to surface." And with every passing second, danger lurking in the shadows tightened its grip on Flight 228, threatening to shatter lives and expose dark secrets that had waited decades to be revealed. Who, or what, was really behind this? And would they survive long enough to find out? The plane had become a crucible of fear and uncertainty, every heartbeat echoing the escalating tension that gripped Flight 228. The eerie fog that had invaded the cabin seemed almost alive, whispering, twisting, and choking the very air they breathed. The once familiar hum of the engines was replaced by an unnatural silence, broken only by the strained breathing of the passengers and the distant, unplaceable murmurs that seeped into their minds like a dark poison. Sam sat rigid, eyes scanning, the faces around her, faces etched with a mixture of terror, confusion, and disbelief. Aaron sat close, his jaw clenched, trying to make sense of the unexplainable chaos. Yet it was Miles Carter who had changed the most. The polished businessman, once the embodiment of control and confidence, now looked like a man cornered by shadows from his own past. Claire moved through the cabin with practiced calm, but even she couldn't mask the tremor in her voice when she approached Sam. "We need to talk," she said softly, glancing around as if the fog might hear them. They slipped toward the rear, away from prying eyes and the creeping dread in the main cabin. "Sam," Claire began, her voice barely a whisper, "there's something you need to know about your family, about your mother's disappearance." Sam's heart lurched. "What do you mean? What don't I know?" Claire's eyes darkened. "Your mother wasn't just some victim caught in a tragic accident. She was part of something much bigger, something secret and dangerous. Flight 77 wasn't just lost, it was sacrificed." The word hung in the air like a thunderclap. Sam's breath caught. "Sacrificed? For what?" Claire hesitated, then pulled out a small, worn folder from her jacket. Inside were photographs, letters, and cryptic documents marked with government seals that no passenger should have access to. "There's a covert operation, Project Ether. Your mother was involved, working to expose dark secrets tied to the government and something supernatural." Sam's mind reeled. "Supernatural? You mean those strange symbols, the warnings?" Claire nodded grimly. "Yes, the dark past of your family isn't just about missing flights. It's about hidden powers and entities, lurking beyond our understanding. Your mother found out too much, and Miles Carter, he wasn't just an innocent passenger." Sam turned sharply toward Miles, who had been watching them with a new, calculating intensity. "What do you mean?" Miles stepped forward, his usual charm replaced by a cold edge. "You think this is a coincidence? Your mother's disappearance? The flight incidents? I was sent to make sure those secrets stayed buried. I'm here to protect my interests." The shock hit like a physical blow. Aaron's eyes widened. "You're working against us?" Miles smiled, a thin, venomous curl. "Not against you, Aaron. Against the chaos you don't understand." The fog thickened suddenly, swirling violently as if reacting to the revelation. The plane shuddered, the lights flickering, plunging the cabin into near darkness once more. Screams erupted, and Claire's voice cracked over the intercom. "Brace for impact!" Sam's heart hammered. The betrayal was unexpected. The lines between friend and foe blurred beyond recognition. The dark secrets uncovered had shattered. Their fragile trust and the mystery deepened with every passing second. As the plane plunged into turbulence, Sam's gaze locked on Miles, an enemy disguised as an ally. The emotional turmoil inside her boiled over, but there was no time to falter. Somewhere in the shadows, a greater danger was waiting, its grip tightening with every breath, and as the cabin door once again creaked open, this time revealing not mist, but a cold, glowing void. The question that haunted Sam echoed louder than ever. Who could she trust when betrayal lurked in every corner, and the darkest secrets threatened to consume them all? The cliffhanger moment left the passengers frozen between hope and despair, as Flight 228 hurtled toward an unknown fate. And Sam realized the fight for truth was just beginning. The glowing void beyond the cabin door pulsed with an eerie light, casting long, unnatural shadows across the passengers' faces. It was like staring into the heart of a nightmare, cold, infinite, and impossibly dark. The rising tension in the cabin was palpable, each breath shallow, each heartbeat pounding louder than the last as Flight 228 hovered on the edge of something no one dared to name. Sam's mind raced, fragments of everything she'd just learned swirling chaotically. Miles Carter's betrayal cut deeper than she expected. His calculated calm was now a mask for something far more sinister. She glanced at Aaron, whose usual steadiness had cracked, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and determination. "We can't let this destroy us," Aaron whispered, gripping her hand tightly. "We need to find a way through this." Claire, still moving with urgency, gathered the remaining crew and a handful of passengers willing to listen. "We're dealing with forces beyond our control," she said, voice firm despite the emotional conflict showing in her eyes. "But panicking won't save us. We need to work together." The cabin lights flickered erratically, and the humming drone deepened into a low growl that seemed to vibrate in their bones. Passengers huddled together, eyes flicking nervously between the glowing void and each other. The mystery was unraveling fast, and the danger was growing with every passing second. Miles strode toward the cockpit, his demeanor shifting again. "I can help," he said quietly, "but you need to trust me, if only for now." His words were laced with a darkness that unsettled Sam, yet desperation made her nod slowly. There was no choice. As Miles worked with Captain Weller, the instruments flickering wildly like possessed toys, Sam turned back to the passengers. "We don't know what's coming through that door," she said, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "But we have to be ready for anything." Suddenly, the plane lurched violently, throwing everyone off balance. A wave of cold swept through the cabin, and whispers swirled again. Now unmistakably words, fragmented phrases in a language none could understand, yet full of warning. Claire grabbed Sam's arm. "It's not just a door. It's a gateway," she said, her voice trembling. "And whatever is on the other side, it's waiting." The emotional conflict within Sam surged. Fear mixed with a fierce need to protect the people around her. She scanned the faces of those trapped with her, sensing the fragile hope and mounting despair intertwined. The family drama that had haunted her all these years was no longer a distant memory. It was alive, pulsing in the shadows around them. Aaron leaned closer. "We need a plan. We can't just wait for this thing to come in." Sam nodded, her gaze locking on the flickering instruments and the ominous glow beyond the door. "First we figure out what that symbol on the letter means. It's the key, I can feel it." Miles, overhearing, turned sharply. "You don't know the half of it," he warned. "That symbol is tied to forces even I've feared. We're not just fighting a mystery. We're fighting a curse." The plane trembled again, the sound of creaking metal like bones breaking. Outside, lightning flashed, illuminating the swirling void in terrifying bursts. The mystery unravels, but with every revelation the danger grows deeper and more complex. Sam's world had shifted irrevocably, and as Flight 228 hurtled through this storm of shadows and secrets, the true test of courage, trust, and survival was only beginning. Would they find answers in time? Or would the darkness swallow them whole? The cabin was a storm of chaos, hearts pounding, breaths ragged, and the oppressive glow of the void swallowing every flicker of light. The danger had reached its peak, and Flight 228 was on the precipice of the final showdown. Sam's hands trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of the ultimate truth pressing down on her shoulders. The dark secrets she'd uncovered were no longer distant whispers. They were here, alive and hungry. "We don't have much time," Miles growled, urgency cutting through his usual coldness. "The gateway is widening. Whatever crosses will consume this plane and everyone on it." Claire stood beside Sam, eyes blazing with fierce determination. "Then we stop it. We end this now." Sam swallowed hard, heart slamming against her ribs. She scanned the passengers, gathering their fragmented courage, and turned toward the glowing door. The symbols she'd studied on the letters now burned in her mind, a cryptic language meant to seal, to bind. "This is our chance," she said. "We can close the gateway, but it's going to take all of us." The plane shuddered violently, throwing a spray of debris as a cold wind ripped through the cabin. Shadows flickered like living things, reaching toward the terrified faces around her. The emotional climax had arrived, a moment when hesitation would cost everything. Aaron moved to her side, steady and strong despite the storm raging inside him. "Whatever happens," he said, we'd do it together. As Sam stepped toward the portal, Miles drew a small ancient artifact from his coat, the key to sealing the darkness. "This," he said, voice low and urgent, "is the only thing that can stop it, but using it will cost me everything." "No more secrets," Sam whispered, locking eyes with him. "This ends now." With Claire's guidance, the passengers formed a circle, chanting the strange incantations from the letters, their voices trembling but growing stronger. The artifact pulsed in Miles's hand, glowing with a fierce white light that pushed back against the black void. The battle between light and shadow roared through the cabin. The air thickened, charged with raw energy as the gateway fought to stay open. The walls seemed to breathe, and screams echoed, both human and otherworldly. Suddenly Miles collapsed, the light dimming in his grasp. Sam rushed to him, tears streaming, her voice breaking. "No, you can't give up now." Summoning every ounce of her will, Sam took the artifact. The weight was immense, not just in her hand, but in her soul. The chanting rose to a crescendo as she focused, speaking the final words that would seal the gateway forever. A blinding flash enveloped the plane, and then silence. When the light faded, the void was gone. The cabin was still, save for ragged breathing and shaky tears. The danger had been stopped. The ultimate truth revealed itself not as a weapon, but as a burden shared. Miles, weak but alive, smiled faintly. "You did it, Sam. You saved us all." In the quiet aftermath, the passengers gathered, changed by the ordeal. The family mystery that had shadowed Sam's life had finally found its resolution, though at great cost. Claire embraced Sam tightly. "We all have dark pasts," she said softly, "but facing them together makes us stronger." Aaron squeezed Sam's hand, his eyes warm with unspoken promise. "This isn't the end. It's a beginning." Sam looked out the window, the first light of dawn breaking through the clouds. Lessons learned etched deep in her heart, the hope of a new day, a hopeful ending born from the darkest night. The story of Flight 228 had come to a close, but its echoes would live on, a moving conclusion that would inspire courage and resilience in the face of the unknown. As the plane finally touched down, Sam whispered, "We survived. We grew. And we'll never forget." The mystery was over, but the journey, the real journey, was just beginning.